Hello, guys. Welcome to our English lesson. Revisa aí. What's up? Em português. Que bom poder estarmos juntos, preparados para estudar a lição 3. Então, meu amigo, acompanha aí porque revisa aí. É muito bom poder estudar a lição com vocês. Nós vamos estudar a lição 3 e eu gostaria de chamar o Arthur. Ele vai nos acompanhar, vai nos ajudar a estudar essa lição maravilhosa. Essa lição estará durante toda a semana disponível para você consultá-la, ok? Vai ser uma lição breve e o Arthur estará aqui com a gente. Por favor, Arthur, tudo bem com você?
Tudo bem? Feliz sábado, gente. Muito legal estar aqui com vocês mais uma vez, mais uma semana, para mais uma lição.
Ok, sem problemas. Muito bem, vamos então começar fazendo uma oração. Vou pedir para que o Arthur faça então uma oração e depois nós vamos fazer a lição em inglês.
Então vamos orar. Senhor, eu te agradeço por mais uma oportunidade, por mais um revisa aí em inglês, por mais uma semana, por mais uma lição. Te agradeço porque tem sido uma bênção. Peço para que a tua companhia continue com a gente durante esse estudo, durante os próximos também. Em nome de Jesus, amém.
Amém. Thank you very much, Arthur. This is our lesson, the teacher's version, right? The English version, Hebrews. So this lesson 3, the promised son. So very nice, right? And I like to read a special thought in Friday's lesson. The coming of Jesus to this earth as the Son of God fulfills several functions at the same time. In the first place, as the divine Son of God, Jesus came to reveal the Father to us. So this is very important. Through his action and words, Jesus showed us what the Father really is like and what we can trust and obey him, and why we can trust and obey him. Jesus also came as the promised son of David, Abraham, and Adam, through whom God had promised he would defeat the enemy and rule this world. Thus, Jesus came to take the place of Adam at the head of humanity and fulfill the original purpose God had for them. Jesus came to be the righteous ruler God always wanted this world to have. So this is the message of the Hebrews. Jesus came. So Jesus came. How Jesus came? This lesson is very important because Jesus came because Jesus promised to Adam and Eve, to Abraham and to King David about his son, about his descendants. So I like to present this lesson with share my display with you. Well, the promised son, the title of our lesson, the memory text in Hebrews chapter 1, verses 2 and 3, the New International Version. I read, "But in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom also he made the universe. The Son is the radiance of God's glory and the exact representation of his being." Hebrews 1, 2, 3. So it's very important to pay attention in this memory text, because the first part of this memory text says that he has spoken to us by his Son. So Jesus is the voice of God. Jesus was appointed heir of all things. Jesus through him also he made the universe. So Jesus is the creator. And the Son is the radiance of God's glory. So Jesus is the radiance of glory of God. And the most important point is that Christ is an exact representation. So pay attention in the first point and the third point. The first and the third point is linked, right? The voice of God is the same voice that created the universe, created the world. The second point is linked to the fourth point. Jesus is our hair, or the hair of God, is the radiance of glory of God, our expectation to be in the kingdom of God one day at eternity when Jesus came to the second time, is to fulfill the promise that one day we will live in this promised land as there as his hair, as Jesus presented in this memory text. So the first and third point plus second and fourth point equal 5 point. Jesus is God. Jesus is an exact representation. In Portuguese, the version is more or less exata expressão. In English, exact representation, right? So Adam and Eve, Abraham and David, probably ever imagined, however, was that their Redeemer's Son would be God Himself. So, this is the introduction of our lesson, right? The summary of our lesson, how this lesson presents to the content. Sunday's lesson talks about the last days. Monday, God has spoken to us by His Son. Tuesday, He is the radiance of the glory of God. Fourth, Wednesday lesson, through whom He made the universe. And Thursday lesson, today I have begotten you. So let's study Sunday lesson. Arthur, it's okay? Sunday's lesson. Oh, let me pay attention in my smartphone. Sunday's lesson, in these last days. This title is the same title of the December 30, right? In these last days, the first lesson in December 30, we studied about these last days, right? So the author begins with 2 points. The prophets presents last days or later days to talk about the future in general. But Daniel, the prophet Daniel, presents the time of the end to talk more specifically about the last days of Earth's history. So, in Numbers 24 and Isaiah 2, the two passages in our question, presents that God would raise up a king who would destroy the enemies of his people, as Numbers presents, and this king would attract the nations to Israel, as Isaiah presents. So, in Hebrews, Paul says that these promises were fulfilled in Jesus. Jesus defeated Satan and, by proclamation of the gospel, attracted all the nations to him, or to Israel. Well, let me see. No, let talk about Jesus in 3 points in Sunday's lesson. By the resurrection, new creation, and final kingdom, we can see Jesus fulfill all these points. So the first point is resurrection, the wonderful news that God initiated the resurrection of his children with the resurrection of Jesus. So in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, we can see this promise that God in these last days will resurrect all the right people that rest in him. So the second point, the Father also promised a new creation in Isaiah 65. He has begun to fulfill that promise by creating a new spiritual life. So, by this new creation, or as some religious people says today, as a baptism, God fulfilled the promise through Jesus. God promised too that he would establish his final kingdom, as Daniel 2 presents. So Jesus inaugurated that kingdom, defeating Satan and installing Jesus as our real ruler. So, what the Father, that's the important point, the main point. What the Father began to do at Jesus' first coming, he will bring to completion at his second coming. So, this is the Sunday's lesson, right? So nice. Monday's lesson, God has spoken to us by his Son. So, the first part of our memory text, right? The public is the key to understand this special point. The Jews of the first century, Anno Domini, had not been heard the word of God for 4 centuries. We know this period as intertestamentary period. The last revelation came through Malachi and the ministries of Ezra and Nehemiah. So, when Jesus came, Jesus has or had a special rule in this scenario. Jesus was our teacher, representative, and savior to us and to them at this time. He fulfilled the prophecies of the Old Testament. Christ should be understood by the Israelites at this specific time, but Jesus not so should be understood by the Israelites, but for us too. The Old Testament spoke about Jesus and many prophecies. So the Old Testament communicated a true knowledge of God's will. So when Jesus arrived on earth, Jesus was like a picture on the box of a jigsaw puzzle. Em português, Jesus era como a capa de quebra-cabeça. And Jesus provides the key to find the correct place for every one of its pieces. So Jesus brought so much light to the Old Testament. So Jesus fights for us and represents us. So Jesus is our representative or mediator. Jesus, the Father also wants to do for us what he did for Jesus. For instance, in Revelation 3, he who exalted Jesus at his right hand also wants us to sit with Jesus on his throne. So this is an important point, this main point in complete this Monday's lesson. God's message to us in Jesus includes not only what Jesus said, but also what the Father did through him and to him, all for our temporal and eternal benefit. So the Monday's lesson is a hope message to us. In português, Arthur, já vimos então a lição de domingo, que fala sobre os últimos dias, e a lição de segunda, que Deus falou através de Jesus, é a voz. Are you ready to share Tuesday's lesson?
Yes, I am. Tuesday's lesson is, we can start talking about Tuesday's lesson, mentioning what you just said about Jesus being on the Old Testament. So, in the Old Testament, we can see the glory of God being the reference to the glory of God are usually about his visible presence among the Israelites. It's usually portrayed as light, as radiance of light. And that would be the title of Tuesday's lesson. He is the radiance of the glory of God. And as we are image of God, Jesus was image of God too, but not exactly as us, because there's a part to Jesus that we do not have, because it's about him. It's exactly that. The radiance of the glory of God is not something we have. It's something Jesus has. It's something he shows us. It's something he presented to us when he was here. And that's not exactly something we have, even though we have so much in common to him. In Hebrews 1:3, which is part of our memory text, it says, "And he is the radiance of his glory and the exact representation of his nature." That means that through Jesus, we may know God, because he is that representation. He is the radiance of the glory of God. So as we were talking about the glory in the Old Testament being represented as light, or being presented to the people as light, when we go to the New Testament, we see Jesus describing himself as the light. He says that he is the light of the world. We see different authors in New Testament talking about this as well. And in the episode of the Transfiguration, for example, we can see in Matthew 17:2, it says, "His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became as white as the light." So Jesus, the radiance of the glory itself, the light, all that is really mixed up in a very interesting way. And the lesson's author points something out that it's a very interesting thought. It says, "Because God's glory is light itself, there is no difference in actual being and character between God and Jesus, just as there is no difference between light and its radiance." So understanding that Jesus carries the essence of God is so important, because Jesus came to this earth and lived among us. The glory of God was once again with us, not as a light or as a cloud in the temple as we see, or in the sanctuary, in the tabernacle as we see in the Old Testament, but Jesus himself, as the glory of God, as the radiance of his glory, came to this earth and walked among us. And that is why through Jesus, through him, we can know God our Father, and have this experience with his glory. Maybe not as light and cloud or smoke in the temple, in the sanctuary, but through Jesus, because he is the perfect representation of God and of his glory. And
Just a little minute. Arthur, I have a problem. Please repeat this thought.
yes, okay. So, um, in the Old Testament, to sum it up, we could just say that in the Old Testament, the glory of God was represented or presented as light, as even clouds or smoke in the temple, in the sanctuary, usually as light among the Israelites. But when we go to the New Testament, we see Jesus being this representative of God and and His glory. Uh, and we even see Jesus presenting Himself and being described as the light of the world. And on the episode of the Transfiguration, we can literally see Jesus shining like the sun. So, because of that, because Jesus carries these qualities, or the quality of being the glory of God, that is why through Jesus we may know God and may experience God's glory too.
So interesting. I remember when Moses asked to God present his glory to him, and God denied this ask. Asked Moses hidden in a rock because only his kindness would be present to Moses, not his glory. And Jesus is called the radiance of glory of God. So this is a parallel with the inheritance. Jesus is heir of all things because Jesus has the same glory of God. Jesus is our God. So this Tuesday's lesson is so nice, so very important.
Yes, it is. And Wednesday's lesson expands a little bit on that idea of Jesus, the glory, Jesus also being not only a representative, but also being a literal part, and at the same time, a literal whole of it. So Wednesday's lesson is called Through Whom He Made the Universe. Uh, and the lesson's author starts with a logical reasoning. Uh, as we know, God is creator. You see that in Genesis, that in the beginning, God made heavens and earth. Also, on Hebrews chapter 1, verse 10, the author of Hebrews, which we believe is Paul, he says uh, about Jesus that in the beginning, Lord, you lay the foundations of the earth, and the heavens are the work of your hands. Here he's mentioning another passage from the Old Testament, but he's also pointing this responsibility of creating, this role of creator, to Jesus. And when we go to Nehemiah 9:6, just the beginning of that verse, it says, "You alone are the Lord. You made the heavens." So if God is creator and Jesus is creator, but if there is only one creator, therefore Jesus and God are the same.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Jesus is also portrayed by the Bible, for example, in the book of Hebrews, as judge. And the reason for that, the reason why Jesus can be a judge, is that because he is creator, because he creates, and because he also sustains the universe and everything in it, he is the only one worthy of playing that role. Jesus may be the judge. He can be the judge, and that is because he created everything that exists. So the lesson also brought us a very interesting thought. I would like to share this one too with you. It says the Greek word pheron, sustaining, carrying, is used to describe the wind or driving a boat. Uh, I'm sorry, is used to describe the wind driving a boat, for example, in Acts 27, or God leading the prophets, for example, in 2 Peter chapter 1. Thus, in a real sense, Jesus not only created us, but also sustains us. Every breath, every heartbeat, and every moment of our existence is found in him. Jesus is the foundation of all created existence. So, Wednesday's lesson is about this, is about showing us that Jesus carries the glory of God because he is the radiance of his glory, but not in the sense that he is just a representative. He is a representative, as we are image of God too, but also he is judge because he also is creator. So Wednesday's lesson is about all that, and yeah, that was it.
So very nice, very well, Arthur. So nice. This days, Tuesday, Wednesday, in Thursday talks about the memory text, right? So this Mondays, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So in Thursday lesson, to complete our lesson, I like to share my display again. One more note. Thursday lesson talk about the curious expression, today I have begotten you. This title is the same at the January 2 on the lesson 2, Jesus is our King. So in the lesson 2, presents the same idea. Today I have begotten you. Remember Arthur in Wesley's lesson presents more or less 13 or 14 passages because the concerning of author to present Jesus as the creator of the world is so important to to point the idea as our creator too, right?
Yes,
Thank
he
you.
he he mentions. He even mentions that some people believe that Jesus, when the author of Hebrews says that through Jesus everything was made. Uh, some people believe that that means that Jesus was only a means, or only a tool, or only a worker, or something like that. But actually, and the author really works to show us that Jesus is creator. Jesus, uh, as radiance of God's glory, he created. He is judged because of that. So yes,
and
that's
and this point prepares the next step, because as our creator, how Jesus was begotten uh, to God by God. So Hebrews, sorry for my typing, chapter 1 verse 5 says, you are my son, today I have begotten you. What does it mean? Jesus is a created being. How? If Jesus is our creator. So this is important to understand before this lesson. So the concept of the divine adoption of the ruler was common in the Greco-Roman world in the East. It gave the ruler legitimacy and power over the land. In Psalm 2, uh, God says the same idea, I have begotten you. So this concept is not a concept of biology, but a status concept. The concept of Jesus as God's only begotten Son is not dealing with the nature of Christ as deity, but his role with his role in the plan of salvation. So the Thursday lesson don't talk about the biological role, but status role. So this kind of title is important to understand in Jesus, because Jesus fulfilled all these things, not only because his dating aspects or nature, but because God adopted him or begot Jesus as the ruler of the world, of this earth. So this is the important to us, because to God in baptism and in transfiguration, the Thursday's lesson shows that Jesus was publicly revealed as God's Son. So this is important remembrance for us. And in the second Samuel chapter 7, verses 12 to 14, says that Jesus would be adopted by God as his own son, and his throne over the nations would be established forever. So the expression "I have begotten you" fulfill these promises, and the concept of the ruler the world, ruler all the nations. So, em português, vocês viram que nós concentramos aqui a lição praticamente, deixa eu fechar aqui para não me perder. Estamos já fechando, concluindo a lição, e creio que estamos trabalhando bem essas ideias. Mostramos aqui os slides para facilitar. Compartilhe esse vídeo, mande para outras pessoas, para que durante a semana você possa consultar esses estudos. Arthur, tudo certo?
Tudo certo, tudo sim.
Podemos terminar?
Podemos.
Então, muito
podemos.
bem. Então, tá bom. Pessoal, até semana que vem. See you there. I study the lesson.
Do you?